Are you saying people won't be watching immediately right now?
I'm saying that we don't need to.
We're waiting for the countdown. Oh my god! It's starting! It's starting!
Five,
Quick,
four,
quick!
3.
Guys, you're gonna miss it!
Click.
Alright,
So what the fuck are we talking about?
On a Majesty. On a Majesty. Why is your name? Don't do that, Ross. What's that about?
That's something
But
from...
it's good advice, Ross. You just
yeah, just don't do it.
look at that.
Is that
It's like
directly
what I-
towards this
what I
movie we're about to
repeat
talk about?
to myself, like every time before we start a podcast, don't do that.
Nope.
Don't do
Especially
that.
not when you're streaming live on the
Also-
internet.
Yeah, exactly. And also, definitely don't do that. It's from not last week, but the week before. And you thought you were funny, Sam. I thought it was funny.
Oh, I know
Neither
what I
of us
did.
were
I know
funny.
what I did. I did this. That's what I did. I removed Ross, and that
Thank
was your
you
little
for
protest,
illustrating my
wasn't it?
point.
That was your little protest, Ross. It's very cute.
Neither of us were funny. Oh, I remember. It was this. Yeah, it was exactly that.
Well, I
done.
don't know.
It wasn't
Dave
funny
laughed,
then,
to be
and
fair.
it's not fucking still funny.
He laughed. He laughed.
All right, you know what? All right, fair.
I won't do it again. I know where the limit of a
Definitely will.
joke is.
He definitely. Comedy is the rule of three. It's definitely coming.
Save it,
It needs to be a
Save it.
callback. It needs to be a callback in 20 minutes.
You know what struck me about this movie? Gone.
Yep, I don't care though.
Is that right, Ross? Yeah. See ya.
Shut it down.
This is why we stopped streaming live in the first place.
It is exactly right.
Power going to Sam's head.
Exactly
It's
right.
to go to someone's head, isn't it? At the end of the day. Right, let's talk about this movie then, shall we?
Still, are we still talking about this one?
It's been 2 minutes and we're already
We haven't
exhausted.
started yet, Ross.
Oh,
Right. Time-honored tradition. Hello. Welcome to this week's episode of the Imaginary Movie Podcast, a podcast where we watch a movie and then we get berated for suggesting we watch said movie by our friends. My
Fairly.
name's David, and is it just me, or is this photocopier James Bond has in this like phenomenally advanced for 1969? Like, it's more impressive than anything else in this movie. Or maybe that's just a sign of how boring this movie was.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
you wanted to know the make and model of photo.
30 seconds in, and we're talking about photocopiers.
Yeah.
That's
Finally, a movie with some high tech. Excellent.
my name's Sam, and just because there's no Sean Connery doesn't mean we can't do accents.
I don't think you should ever do that again. So.
I'm not suggesting
we were messaging last night, and Dave said, "Don't anyone do a Sean Connery."
it doesn't mean.
We're in unison. You're not the boss of us, Dave, and I get why now. I didn't want us to do
Listen,
an accent.
I can do.
Sometimes, just occasionally, I'm right.
I can do Sean Connery, but only lines from Indiana Jones. This is the problem. Junior, we named the dog Indiana. I can do that, but I can't do anything when he's doing Sean Connery in Bond version.
You sure can. You did that, yeah. And I'm Ross. And this never happened to the other fellow, or some fucking forgettable bullshit about this movie. God, it's terrible.
So, this week, for reasons which I'm sure we'll get into when
You, Dave, because of you. Because of you.
when the letters of no
reason.
confidence start to come in. This week, we watched 1969's James Bond film, On Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Now, let's start off. Let's start off.
I'm going to start off here.
All
by
right, we'll
saying
start off
I
then.
thought we should watch this because I'd never seen it. Obviously, we've talked about James Bond before. We did GoldenEye, fun movie. I never watched this as a kid. I think probably because it wasn't like Lazenby isn't really one of the Bonds.
Lazenby.
It's Lazenby, but it's fine. George Lazenby obviously is
Lazenby.
rolling in his grave. Wait, is he dead? Anyway, irrelevant. The
I'll
shade
Google
of George Lazenby. I never watched this movie because it's not one of the Connery Bonds, like one of the classic Bonds. It's not one of the Roger Moore Bonds, fat 60-year-old man Bonds. It's not one of the Bonds, so we can't. You skip it. It doesn't really give you anything you need. It's not. It's so long. It's so long. Yeah. This is what 2 hours 40 minutes. This movie.
It's you know what it is. It's James Bond is like a GoldenEye, probably my favorite one. As much as you can have a favorite, these films aren't amazing. Like especially the early ones, it's all very weird. And there's something though about these movies that is kind of cool and kind of interesting, and it's like male fantasy escapism, and that's fine in itself. But the problem is that in this movie they took all the things that they did with Sean Connery and they threw them in the trash and just started again with like this boring, there's just nothing going on in this film. And so when you say it's the one you haven't seen, there's a fucking reason. There's a reason that this is the movie that your parents would have gone, oh no, don't worry about, we're not watching that one, or we're not going to tune to that channel when it's on a Sunday afternoon.
I also think it's maybe like
dull.
the least rerun one.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah. I mean, bear in mind, when this was on TV, Sam, on a Sunday evening, night, whatever, the movie itself is 2.5 hours. Take ads into consideration then, like when you put adverts in there. And then you like those movies when they're so long, and then it gets to 10 o'clock, bong, this is the news. Then you got half an hour added onto it, on top of the ads.
Interrupted.
Fuck this film, honestly, seriously. Yeah, terrible. Terrible film.
And it's in pretty much opposition to most other Bond films, isn't it? In terms of like the tone of it is a bit off. It's kind of not, it's not funny. It's not full of action set pieces. It's kind of more like a slow burn mystery romantic film. There's just lots of it doesn't feel like a James Bond movie. Now, for better or worse, that's up to the viewer. And there are things in this that I actually liked. If you just take away the James Bondness and have it as a different character, there are interesting things going on. But the problem is that you're signing up, you go into the movies to watch James Bond, which is a particular type of movie, and that's where I think the expectation management does not work out well. However, 81% Rotten Tomatoes. This was a pretty well considered, like Lazenby wasn't exactly hailed as the greatest Bond ever, the second one, but at least there was something going on there. But I just don't think it's held up in the lens of time in the way that even the fucking crazy racist movies, which is all of them before this point, at least have entertaining aspects to them, and that's the bit. It's just not entertaining. It's not fun,
How many movies was he Bond in?
Lazenby one.
But so we can't say he's done an okay job when they didn't get him back for any more.
Yeah,
he was terrible. They knew he was terrible.
There's a lot of background trivia to this as to why he wasn't recast. Seemingly, he was a bit of a prick, rather, he didn't get along with the producer or the writers, the director. And seemingly the biggest thing is that he'd said to his agent he didn't want to do any more. He'd signed a fucking contract for 7 movies. And Hollywood's mad where this TV advert actor, this Australian TV advert actor...
never acted before.
Gets a 7-movie deal. He'd taken money for the second movie. He had to refund the money for the second movie back to the studio. He'd signed this thing. And apparently, some idiot was like, "Oh, mate, you're going to be really famous, and James Bond is done. They're not going to make any more of those films." So he didn't do it. He said no, and they said, "Oh, that's fine. We don't want you." And you could have been like, "I don't care if you're the worst actor in the entire world. If you've got a contract that says they're going to make 7 movies, I'm like, yes, I'll have to dump some money. Thank you, cha-ching." Exactly, Ross. Exactly.
You, Robert Downey Jr. Jesus Christ.
Imagine how
he would have taken the money, Sam. He would have taken the money.
Yeah.
Imagine that level of confidence where you can go, "Oh, I'm going to be James Bond, one of the most known sort of characters in movies at this time, and I'm not going to do it again because other work will come along." How much of a fucking moron do you have to be to go, no, thank you to fame and fortune? Asshole. I don't like him.
Well, Well, but maybe a lot of that is it's maybe hit my personal. I mean, he didn't really want to do more. As I say, the contemporary reaction wasn't good, so people were like, "What the fuck's this?" Because they were expecting, Sean Connery to be going around doing outlandish stuff, and it's a bit more grounded. Now let's talk about things that I actually go on.
To argue with you, so I love arguing with you. While maybe like there were naysayers about Lazenby, like this movie made loads of money. Like people went out and saw this movie. Like it might not have been the most successful thing in the world, like critically, and it might not have been like it wasn't a fan favorite really. But this movie was like well thought of at the time, enough. And it made loads of money.
Sure.
And it wasn't like.
Don't you think like the majority of reason of that for the success will have been because of the quality and success of the movies that came before it?
That's exactly what.
No. I know what I'm talking about here, and I should maybe phrase myself a little bit better.
I'll sign off.
Well, tell us then, Dave. Tell us what you're talking about.
People didn't like Lazenby, but they liked the movie. And I know that's confusing, but like the two things can exist at the same time. Like this movie wasn't panned. This wasn't like, abjured as like a terrible movie that you shouldn't see.
Yes.
People thought this was a good movie. They just didn't think Lazenby was a good James Bond.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of the negative spin comes from.
And
because obviously he's in the movie. That's a big part of like
and that's
the
kind of maintained.
Longevity.
And that's kind of maintained. That's the Rotten Tomatoes 81 on Rotten Tomatoes is more modern reviews, and that's I think. And again, into things that I liked, things that are actually quite interesting, is that it is taking a different spin. Now, if this movie was made today and we got a kind of like reimagining of what James Bond is, I think this would be pretty close. Like Casino Royale was trying to be a bit more grounded. The modern Casino, Daniel Craig. The whole of the Daniel Craig, at the start anyway, was more like, we're going to have less Pierce Brosnan driving tanks through walls, as absolutely great as that is, and we're going to have more like testicles getting whacked by rope. Like, so we're changing we're changing the level of where James Bond's at.
Pissed.
Yeah. So everything, and actually, when you compare it to Casino Royale, compare it to the slower tone, there's less like, we see a few of the gadgets, but they're not forefront. They're not in the forefront of like, and here's the laser pen that's going to come back later on, which we don't really get much of that in the same sense. It's not like
it's in a similar vein. It's not. It's moving away from the Roger Moore films. Were definitely the campier, like
which came afterwards. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, this movie, like you're right, is kind of like a good middle ground, isn't it? Like Casino Royale, because even some of the Connery films, like was Goldfinger Connery. And like, he's a villain. He paints people gold for some.
Paints people gold, yeah.
Like, and that's his thing. And you're like, what? But this is obviously like, oh no, we're gonna have a sensible, silly thing. I would say that the more modern films, though, the only thing that maybe where they differ in terms of like this Bond outlook thing is, they're super murdery. James Bond is really passive in this movie. Lazenby's a really passive James Bond. Mm-hmm. Like he beats a few people up, he throws a few people off the hill, mounted. But he's not like us. He smacks a few at 1969, Ross. I mean, part of the course.
What is he going to do? Not smack a woman?
Exactly. What is he going to do? Not smack a woman and then have a cigarette? What is this? Communist China? But
well,
like,
go on.
It's not. He's not like going around like assassinating people, and maybe even the Connery Bond. Like the Connery Bond was like constantly beating people up because Connery's a big, physically imposing guy who loves to beat people up. Like, so that came through in the performance. Roger Moore's a silly, goofy, fucking cartoon character of a man. Timothy Dalton is more in the Daniel Craig vein of like assassinating people. But the Lazenby is kind of like, well, I'm just going to sit and play cards and smoke a cigarette and then have sex with some women and perhaps then I'll have another drink. And there's not so much like like you said, Sam. There's not so much like the ball torture that we get in the Daniel Craig Bonds.
I just love that scene. It's just brilliant. Really,
I know it seems to have really had an effect on you.
I think it's not the first time I've brought it up either on this on this podcast. God,
better or for worse, that scene is really stuck in Sam's mind.
The noise.
I like the way these guys think.
The noise. And let's not forget that after this, they brought Connery back for Diamonds Are Forever. Like, So there's a weird thing of like they tried something, it didn't take, and they went back to the success that they were used to, and then we go into 1973's Live and Let Die, and
So let me ask this then,
Roger
'cause
Moore.
You guys seem to be more well versed than I am on the Bond universe. So there was a couple of movies with Sean Connery. Then it
About
was
5, yeah, something like that, yeah.
Then it was Lazenby.
Mm-hmm.
Lazenby.
Lazenby.
Want me to
George
want me
Lazenby.
to
Yeah.
Lazenby.
set out how many movies everyone did, Ross? So Sean Connery did 4.
No, hang
in
on,
the
I'm
60s.
going somewhere this, Dave. Hang on, we'll do the tally afterwards. So then he did it, and then Connery came back then for Diamonds Are Forever.
For one film. Mm-hmm.
So here's and I'm going somewhere with this because is this all narratively connected? So is the end of the Bond movie before Her Majesty's Secret Service? Does that
Sometimes.
lead in?
Sometimes.
In this it does.
Fucking hell.
In this it does,
So-
right? This is pre-cinematic universe. Basically,
Yes.
like the first, you've got
It's impressive.
Spectre and you've got Blofeld, and you've got like Spectre's like the evil organization that looms
Well,
above all
they're in the
this.
modern
Well,
Bond
you hear it,
movies, so
it's
you'll be familiar
referenced
with
in
yeah,
the movie.
yeah. But
Yeah.
other than that, kind of no. Like we don't get any of the same. Other than Moneypenny, none of like the women are there really connected throughout this. And so no, basically that would be the short answer.
So two things then. One, I was gonna say, so does it lead back into Connery's next movie because the girlfriend dies at the end or the wife dies at the end? Does that somehow affect Connery's Bond character
think-
at the
I
beginning?
can't remember.
Basically, like they pick and choose. Like Sam says, it's not like the Marvel Cinematic Universe
hell.
where they've got a bunch of fucking nerds being like, "Excuse me, Iron Man's cape was green in the last movie." They haven't got that, but like they basically pick and choose the continuity. So I think some of the movies after this, before the Daniel Craig ones, which seem to be like a bit of a reset in terms of the
Yes.
continuity, like. Some of them will reference earlier films and some of them won't. So the Sean Connery movies are mostly about Spectre, like Sam says. Like this movie is much more of a direct sequel to like the previous movie, obviously, because like James Bond is doing something and you only find out fucking 5 hours into the movie what he's doing.
Yeah.
Because
So-
it's
so
like,
that's where I was going with it,
didn't
yeah.
you watch The Last Adventure? And then
Tune in next
the
year.
The Roger Moore movies are all really, really silly and like he's mostly baddie of the week. Then you've got Timothy Dalton. He's fucking around in the Soviet Union. A lot of the Brosnan ones are like either for the Soviet Union or like Korea. There's a Korea vibe in the Brosnan ones. It's much more of like a 90s thing. But like they all have their own continuity and it tends to like not a lot of it lasts beyond them changing who plays Bond, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Gotcha.
and so that's why I think this film is interesting. In like how it's trying something different. It's trying something and doesn't take, and so they have to kind of respond to that, and that's what they do in the next films. And it's a real return to form when you get from Diamonds Are Forever, certainly, and then into Roger Moore, and then we do like Moonraker, which is fucking batshit, like absolutely batshit crazy. Star Wars just came out, and oh my god, they're trying to cash that check. So that's why, and it's funny when I was watching it, I'm quite invested at the start of this movie. Like I'm interested in what's going on compared to where I thought I would be, because I've seen this once as a younger man, and that was like, well, that was boring and shit, and couldn't be asked for that. But what the film's the kind of slow burn of this movie, and the fact that you've got the start bit, which is all about how Bond's trying to find this woman who we don't know who she is, and there's a connection there, and then it ends up like being the daughter of this guy who's we can come to that in a second. But the start of the movie is quite intriguing. I think it's quite well placed. It's exactly the same as Goldeneye, like almost to a T. The first 5 minutes are exactly the same, other than the weird bit at the start where you've got what's his face, the inventor guy comes in for like 10 seconds and then leaves. But it is recognizable, I think, at the start of this movie. You're kind of like, oh, what's going to happen? What's the intrigue? There's a sexy woman. That's the Bond thing, and they're going to try and lean on that. And it's that divergence away from that standard formula that I think is where maybe it's interesting and also doesn't work at the same time.
I also think maybe we're doing that like classic thing where, and obviously we're not really talking about this from the context of 1969 when we were all several decades from existence, but like all of that's fair, Sam, but maybe like more fair for our modern outlook, having watched like fucking like 15 of these movies, with different people in this. There were 4 movies, and then they made this one. So they were like, we don't know what we're doing. We don't know if this is going to like continue to be a franchise because we haven't changed who James Bond is before.
Yeah, and Connery was still the man. In it was big shoes to fill.
I mean, part of it, that's part of the problem, though, isn't it? Because Connery was so well thought of as Bond. Do you know what I mean? Anyone who came in, Lazenby was fucking terrible anyway. But when Lazenby came in, then he was destined to fail. And yes, I did pronounce his name 2 different ways there, Dave.
I was going to say, who was better, Ross? Was Lazenby better than Lazenby?
I can't remember which is the right one. Lazenby.
Now, let's talk about him for a second. Let's get into it. Because I actually think that he's not terrible in this. He's not the magnetic, super swag. He's a bit more. He's downplaying it a little bit, and there's not so much of the. We're not Roger Moore. Like every 4 seconds, he's raising one eyebrow to almost directly looking at the camera as he does. It's fucking atrocious. He's playing a relatively grounded character who's a bit smug. And that's kind of what James Bond is. All of them have that air.
I don't think this guy can act.
I'm not saying.
The reason you think he's grounded, Sam, is because he's a fucking TV advert actor.
Exactly what I'm saying.
Not acting.
It's
he's just there on set, and he's like, "Oh, it's just this guy."
He's present. That's all it is.
And I'm saying that works. I'm saying that works in certain scenes where he is required to be a smug
himself.
a smug looking, like white guy. He's doing that. He's pulling that off. and it, especially
you think that's the direction like the director goes with. Now in this scene, what would you normally do? Yeah. Well, I'd probably smack her. Well, yeah, go on. Let's try that.
Just do that.
Just do action.
And it's this thing with Lazenby is that all the way through the movie he's kind of like he's trying different things. He tries to do the hard man thing. He tries to be quite stern and and then he tries to be a little bit funny when he's dressed up as Hilly later on. Wow, this is a whole different direction that we were.
Interject here. Sorry, Sam. Is Hilly supposed to be gay? Because it's mentioned like 3 or 4 times. Oh, you don't like women. At what point are we supposed to know this? This character.
It's 1969. I think that's the implication.
Take the context of 1969. You have the scene where you meet the real Hilly, and he is definitely coded as gay within the confines of this movie.
Whoa!
I think so.
Definitely in that scene. And it's that total oh, well, if you're effeminate, obviously you're gay, and that is this character is like, oh, right, you're playing a gay man, so
he doesn't like sports. He doesn't like sports. There's all these things, and you're like, okay, that's what they're going for. No,
he doesn't like to get out. He's just really into coats of arms and ancestry, and you're like, oh, this must be a gay man, because it's 1969. And what do you mean you don't like to go to casinos, gamble, smoke, hit women, and then get in fights?
Haven't you ever hit a woman before?
Do you even slap women about on a regular basis?
When's the last time you slapped someone? You haven't? Obviously gay.
It is. I mean, the 1969 of it all is apparent and runs throughout the rest of the movie. But let's also talk about there's an element of this where yes, he's still James Bond and massive misogynist, and that doesn't change all the way up to 2022 where he continues to do that. But this is a very
James Bond has remained a sexual assaulter in the woke era
all the way through
in movies.
All the way through. It's
like
I know.
Apparently, what we're fine with.
I know, it's absolutely weird. But
license to dick. That's what 007 is.
But relative to the other, the way that Sean Connery acts is much worse, especially towards women, much worse. And what comes next is much worse. Like it's fairly restrained in this, and he's kind of only interested in the woman that he clearly and ends up loving and marries and wants to marry. And so, like, again, that doesn't feel like it should fit in this.
I will say, Sam, just to argue
I
with
see
you here,
both Dave and I about to fucking.
Hold on. Let me finish the
James
point. Let me
Bond
finish the point.
has confirmed sex with more women in this movie than I think in any other James Bond movie.
Is that a fact, Dave? Is that a fact?
I'm sure,
I'm willing to
sure
accept it as
He
one,
ends
Sam.
the movie.
No, listen.
He ends the. Hold on. He ends the movie. Absolutely distraught because Blofeld has killed the person that he loves and is like, that's the end of the film. It's a great ending. Like, I hadn't remembered that happened. I was like, wow, that was a nice little stinger at the end. I can't think of many movies where we're ending on that point. We're ending on that point of the, like, James Bond actually was in love and was completely happy to say, okay, that's it. You know, we're gonna get married and have 8 kids.
I'm not going to stop having sex with other women, of course. But we're going to get
It's the
married.
60s. Jesus, Dave. Like, what do you expect? But I do think that it's a different take. I think it's why it didn't work. It's why it broke the expectation. But if you made the movie now, and I'm thinking of, there's a Daniel Craig plot, isn't there, about like him
I think it's
losing.
Casino Royale still.
Yeah, where he's actually
throughout
Underwater in the elevator.
he's actually upset. He's actually upset because he's lost someone that he loves, and it sets up the second movie, which is trash.
Yeah.
And so, in some ways, this is ahead of its time, and we're doing stuff that's very different. Now, let's get forward to Roger Moore, where it is like fucking STD City through here, and you know we're on a different planet, literally
was
different.
Contractually made. I have to have sex with women throughout these movies.
Yeah.
I've got to be.
Yeah. And that I think
communism with his dick.
Yeah. And that's
let's not engage
commendable.
in whataboutery here, Sam. Okay. No, we're talking about Her Majesty's Secret Service, and you said there is a woman where he's only interested in one woman. He dicks at least, I don't know, half a dozen different girls in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Two others, Ross, but he would have had the rest.
Whatever.
He would have had the rest if he hadn't been caught.
If he hadn't
blown his cover, yeah.
With
blown his cover, yeah.
With the stern. Let's talk about the main kind of like the main plot of the start of this movie, which is.
We haven't. We're 30 minutes in and we haven't had a plot summary.
Oh, we haven't done plot summary. Well,
asleep at the wheel.
James Bond woos a mob's boss daughter and goes undercover to my goodness, IMDb, this is terrible writing.
Is something, isn't it?
James Bond woos a mob boss's daughter and goes undercover to uncover the true reason for an Easterlite profile's allergy research in the Swiss Alps involving beautiful women from around the world. Not a single comma in that, and that was.
I read that before this began. I was like, "Oh, I can't wait for Sam to fucking tackle that."
Usually,
I love IMDb. Honestly,
it's just ridiculous.
It's a font of pleasure of just
the nerds on IMDb
idiots.
needs some fucking grammar.
With more English language skills.
But the wooing of the mob boss's daughter. Now this again is where, of all the positives that I've said about this movie, this is where I'm like, what the fuck are we doing?
It's so strange because like you watch this because obviously we haven't watched 4 James Bond movies previous to watching this movie so that we know what's going on. We come in. They're on a beach. There's cars. There's chasing.
Yeah.
She wanders into the sea to kill herself or not, and then he runs in after her for some reason. They don't know each other, and then rescues her. Was she killing herself? And then some guys show up in a car, and there's a fight, and you're like, I don't know who any of these people are or what is going on, and it's never explained.
It's never explained.
They never mention it again.
I don't know who. So I don't know. Yeah, we don't know who she is. We don't know who she is. We don't know why she's just walking into the sea. Now, I don't think that's. I mean, it doesn't seem like a particularly effective way to top yourself. Just keep walking. What are you going to do? You start floating eventually. Like, can she not swim? It's never. We get these guys are trying to kill her. Are they? Or they're there because they've been following Bond and they're like. They want her to walk into the sea. I thought she was on drugs. I thought like, what's going on here? And the way that he knows that that's what she could just be going for a swim. She could just be going for a swim. And there's no indication as to anything else as to why they're doing this.
No, you had a sandwich 10 minutes ago. You've got to wait half an hour.
The flags are up. The flags are up. That means you can't go swimming. The flags.
I mean, I mean,
this
is going to be pedantic. This is going to be pedantic, and I don't know if you guys spotted this, but at the beginning of the movie, I mean, first of all, smoke. But when Bond is driving, smoke, he's driving, and then she overtakes him, and then pulls into the beach. So I have to assume, what would have happened if she didn't overtake? Would Bond have kept driving? Was he tracking her all along? These are the questions I think of. Was he tracking her all along? If so, what would have he done if she didn't overtake him? Where was he going to drive to?
It doesn't make
it does
sense.
matter, Sam.
No, I know. I'm saying it doesn't make
out
sense.
53 years ago, and I still don't know.
It really doesn't make sense. Now, the previous movie was the one in Japan. The just absolutely fucking powerhouse of racism that movie is. Like, we can't do that one. We can't because it's actually insane. We've got Sean Connery with like fucking dressed up in
a kimono.
Oh, the kimono's not even the worst bit. There's way worse things than that. But there isn't any, like, at the end of that movie, there's like the base and it blows up and there's a volcano.
Blofeld escapes, and I think that's the one where you kind of like see Blofeld, like, but only in shadow. Or like that, we're stroking the cat in the chair.
Stroking the cat thing. And then there are some female characters in there, but they're not. It's not the same woman. So there's absolutely no indication as to what.
So is Blofeld in any other Bond movie like before this?
Yes, loads of
them.
them.
He's in. Right. He's like the big bad.
He's in the previous one, but like you don't know. You know his name. You don't know who he is.
Yeah. He's like the head of Spectre.
You haven't seen him, yeah. So he's like the mysterious kind of baddie.
Because the villain with the white cat thing. That's that's synonymous. That's well known, isn't it? And I was like, oh, is this the movie that started it all, or was it before that? Was he seen before that?
It's
no, it was Inspector Gadget, or it was from the beginning. That was so, right.
So we go from here.
How go as you thought it would, Sam?
Yeah, we go from here to the casino, and I always like a casino scene. It makes James Bond seem like it happens in a different universe. Like, oh well, we're in this casino.
Le Bon,
Le Bon, and I'm like, oh, they're
GoldenEye.
They're gambling, and I understand that from other James Bond films.
GoldenEye. It's exactly the same scene. It's exactly the same scene. Yeah. With
and this is the awkward scene where, for some reason, James Bond has checked into the hotel of this mystery woman. Again, we don't know who anyone is yet. She comes downstairs, places the bet, and doesn't have the money. And it's like, like, number one, you're staying in the hotel, so surely they know, like, they know how much, they know what you're good for. They're like, oh, it's this woman, like, not like, oh, awkwardly, like, oh, I don't have any money. Ha 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 ha.
Yeah, and then
it's when they call her on that, and they're like, well, you're gonna have to come with this. She goes, well, that's the way it is. Like, you just threw 20 or 40,000 francs up the wall, and now you don't. That's rich people attitude. Well, I don't have it, so what are you going to do?
To be fair, it's impossible to know what 40,000 francs is worth, but it can't be much, surely.
I mean,
it's not get into the bureau de change of the English currency
in 1969. Yeah, this is we can't fake this. Yeah. Now, then we get the attack, don't we? Now, I actually thought that the fighting in this scene was pretty cool. With the guy comes in and they're smashing up the place. But we have skipped over the first fight scene, and we have skipped over a very, very important detail of the first fight scene. On the beach, we're back on the beach again, and we have the weirdest sped up fighting I've ever seen in a movie. Like, when you see it with car chases, and they do it in this film as well, where they just wind the film just ever so slightly.
Seagull doing 400 miles an hour in the background,
just to make it look a little bit quicker than it was, and that was the technology then, and maybe it worked, but there's no fucking way that it works when they're doing the fighting on the beach in this, and when we go in the hotel, they're not doing it as much. There's a couple, but basically we just get a good, like, and that's what I've always liked about Bond. Like, the fighting, for the hand-to-hand stuff has always felt generally pretty grounded, and this I thought was pretty cool. The problem is that the guy who's doing this is the mysterious girl's dad, and the reason that the mysterious girl's dad wants James Bond there is so that he will like basically marry his daughter, keep her out of trouble or something. And so rather than sending a memo,
what better person to marry your wayward daughter
hold on. Rather than just sending a memo, or perhaps even a car to come pick him up, the first instinct is to send a guy in to beat the living shit out of him for no fucking reason.
Well. Hear me out.
The whole movie is like, what?
Point here. This isn't his room. He's broken into her room, and that's where this guy is.
So why is he attacking him? Because they know who he is, because the guy's in the car when they come around afterwards and they hold him by gunpoint and then stick a knife into him.
I don't know. Dave, no, well, don't try and explain it, Dave. If you don't know, don't try and explain it.
I'm going to explain it. This must be her room, because he comes in, he has the fight. He then goes out and straightens his tie, back to his room, and the woman is in his room. And they have sex, and then he wakes up in the morning.
And the guy, the attacker who's at the door, listens to them like start to bang, and then just leaves them be.
Everything's going according to plan.
But what was the plan? Why did you attack him in the first place? And then why did you?
You've got to make it exciting, Sam. You've got to get the blood pumping.
Wasn't he waiting?
This is the first.
Wasn't the attacker waiting in the room for Bond? I remember that right.
He must. Yeah.
He was in the room.
So then, Dave, your theory falls apart, because
they attack him.
Why would he be waiting in her room?
It does. It is falling apart, Dave, because they attack him, and then 20 minutes later, they're like, "Oh, Mr. Bond, will you marry my daughter?" And like, what the? You couldn't have just. You couldn't
I'm
have
not saying they weren't following him. All I'm saying is that this attacker is not in James Bond's room.
It doesn't matter which room he's in. It doesn't matter.
Yes,
it doesn't make any sense.
Room, why is he in her room? If Bond broke into her room, why is he
following Bond?
Or he's in there before Bond, isn't he?
I don't know.
Guys, it doesn't matter what room it is. It doesn't matter what room it is. Why did he order them to attack Bond when all he wanted to do was say, "Fancy my daughter? Great. Here's £1 million." It's not even like he threatens him to say, "You better go out my door or else." He says, "You want to keep her from like going off to, Italy and stuff? How about you have £1 million, £1 million in gold, if you just go out with her for a bit?" And you're like, the entire start of the movie is fucking batshit. And is needless.
Even more batshit than that, Sam, because again, like, Diana Rigg, I'm sure, is a, wayward girl, and she's up to this, that, and the other. But, like, you're this crime boss, and you're like, do you know who's the man for my little girl? This degenerate, gambling, alcoholic murderer.
Yeah. Who 20 minutes ago was walking around in a racist kimono. Like, so there's, do you know what I mean? I mean, maybe
20 minutes ago, he was blowing up half of Japan.
Yeah.
And, or doing unspeakable things. And like, this is the man for my daughter. They don't know each other, but Mr. Bond, please fuck my daughter, please.
So what are we in, like 20 minutes into the movie? We're 20 minutes into the movie, and we're like,
feels like much more. Wow,
fundamentally, this is a fucking shaky start. This is a shaky foundation to your weird film. Because then. In a not very James Bond sense, but maybe that's a good thing. Maybe they're trying to push boundaries or whatever else. But we're pretty much watching James Bond trying to court this woman who is not interested in, or tries not to be interested in Bond in a romantic sense, culminating, as you rightly point out, Marshall, in a montage. Let's hold on before we get to the montage. Just one line before we get to the montage, and then we can go into it. Diana Rigg gives Bond the information, or makes her dad give Bond the information. That is the only reason that he agrees to do it, is because if you do it, I'll tell you where Blofeld is, or I'll give you this, I'll give you the inside scoop on where Blofeld is. She just says, "Tell him now." He tells her, it tells Bond, and that's it. So we're like, none of it was needed.
Yeah.
Oh,
the rest of, we don't need to marry her. You don't need to do anything. We don't need the montage. Go on the montage.
What's there to say about the fucking montage? It comes out of nowhere. It's not even like, montage is to show like a massive passage of time, but seemingly a week has passed, if that, and it's just them hanging out, and
it goes on forever.
Do you know what you could have achieved with that? Like, cut to black 7 days later. "Oh, Bond, I'm so in love with you. All right, now we know what's happened. Move on." 7 seconds that would have taken. It was terrible.
But it's fine.
This movie's terrible.
It's fine because they promptly, after this fucking... this can't be 20 minutes in, Sam. This has got to be like 40 minutes of this movie. Is this...
I don't know.
But like, then promptly, obviously, we write Diana Rigg. Write Diana Rigg out of the movie for a little bit. Now, briefly, there's some stuff we want to talk about, but I just briefly want to underpin the reason why James Bond is doing any of the things he's doing. So as far as the plot says, he's fucked this guy's daughter. So this guy's really happy about that.
He's delighted about that.
Delighted.
He's so invested.
You better not be using protection, Bond. I'm a Catholic and I don't like that. Right? So James Bond is doing this. He's doing his duty for Queen and country, you know, so that he can get this information on Blofeld. He goes to work and works like, no, we don't want you to do that. We want you to do something else. So he's like, nah, I'm going to do that. So you're doing this for unknown reasons, not for Queen and country, because they don't want you to do that.
Yeah.
Then he's
no one ordered you to do this. We specifically told you not to do this.
Don't do this, Mr. Bond.
This is against the national interest.
He takes leave to go and fucking like go to Switzerland and chase upon this lead, which is the solicitor. Who I don't
he resigns. He tells that he's like, I'm going to resign. Because
but Moneypenny's like, oh, if this guy resigns, he won't ever fuck me.
I know.
That's the subtext in that scene. She just submits a holiday form. Like James Bond requests time off from the 1st of May to the 31st of May, 1969.
Moneypenny really is the like acceptable face of workplace harassment. That's exactly what she's there to be. She's there to be like, yeah, harass me. It's fine. Everything's fine. This is completely okay.
That's literally what I'm paid for. It's in the contract.
He's just like, fucking hell, 1969.
Twice a week. He's going to slap your ass and grab your tit, and then he's going to go and get a work order.
Yeah.
But the first bit's integral because he's not going to be in the mood to take orders from this crusty old man.
You're incorrigible.
Yeah, which is a line from fucking GoldenEye where he's doing exactly the same thing. 45 years later, he's still like, fucking great. This is brilliant.
I mean, you have to think like if it was made like, you know, not the Daniel Craig style, but if this movie was made now, you'd be like, oh, Moneypenny, you fucking whore. You dirty bitch. Stop it, James.
James Bond is a men's rights activist by a long way.
Straight up red pill.
Red pill to shit. Absolutely.
Flex is on his way in the door.
It's been 45 hours since our last action scene, as you guys pointed out.
How many are there in this movie? Can we try and count them as we go?
The last action scene we saw
was
the fight in the hotel room.
We've had
in like minute 12
sped up beach fight, and we've had 3 minutes. Not even that, is it? It's like a minute and a half of this pretty cool, but you know, like nothing going on. Yep. So that's 2.
And then we have
really didn't enjoy this movie.
James Bond sits in front of a safe cracking machine reading porn, and that's the thing that happens in this movie.
How did I forget about this?
You know what, Dave? Hold on. I had not fully appreciated that is what happened until you just laid it out for us, just like that, in those exact words right now. Because I had watched this, and I thought, I mean, the way he gets the massive machine, the huge fucking like trunk into he literally uses an industrial crane to do this. Or is that the photocopy machine? Is that?
It's the same thing. It's a safe cracker.
It's the same. Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah. Right. That's what I'm saying. I want this safe cracker / photocopy machine.
It's a photostatic. Photostatic is what it is, and it's a specific thing. Was like proper Xerox thing or whatever. But he does. He the crane, the industrial crane lifts this thing in. He goes in there, and the tension is that this fucking pencil pushing nerd who he could snap
outside and see if he's got his keys. And it's like, oh my God, there's tension. He might turn around and come back up and find James Bond reading his pornography.
And I was thinking, oh,
James there licks his thumb, turns the page.
Yeah, he's like, he just walks in. The guy walks in and James Bond just says, all right.
Weird.
All right.
Yeah, just carry on.
The only thing missing from this scene is like, you know, dun 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 dun, and there's James just like opening up the Playboy like in portrait sort of version, like folding out the centerfold.
He literally is doing that.
Now, actually, though, the tension in this movie, in this scene, isn't bad. Most of it, though, is from the score, and the score I think is pretty cool in this movie. It's like that's where they eke out the tension from it, rather than like the goddamn. Actually, there's nothing going on. John Barry, not James Barry. That's the author. John Barry was the guy who did the James Bond, the theme, and was like the big, the James Bond guy. So he knows what he's doing. But that's the only place that we actually get like any. Otherwise, it's just some guy slowly walking back to his office, and then when he gets there, he would confront him and say, "Who are you?" And he'd go, "I'm fucking James Bond, and I'm going to murder you. I'm just going to like tie you up, and there's going to be absolutely no consequences."
That would involve James Bond in this movie doing anything. He literally puts his feet up and reads Playboy.
Reads a Playboy. He reads a Playboy. Yep. Fucking wild.
And then, the last movie we covered where like a guy unfolds the centerfold, I think it was Home Alone. Where like Macaulay Culkin is going through Buzz's stuff and he finds Wolf, yeah, right? Jesus, James.
Now we're into the.
We still don't get to a fucking action scene.
We don't.
We go from this scene. We are back in England, so we can have we mentioned our gay coded scene with the guy. Because there was a note, by the way. There was a note in this safe. The mystery is very simple. He opens the safe. There's a letter that says, "Hey, evil solicitor man," which is this guy's name. Evil solicitor man. Solicitor law.
Attorney law.
Hi, just notifying you of a change of address. Ian M. Blofeld III, evil genius. I run Spectre. Definitely don't pass this note to James Bond. No, right?
Yes, yeah.
Like here is my new postal address, and like what? That's what gets us to the next movement.
And it mentions Hillary. What's his face? The genealogy or heraldry guy.
It's not Hillary Bent. It's Hillary something. But yeah,
yeah. It's so confusing, and it's so confusing because you know what's like when we talk about good movies, we talk about movies that. You kind of like there's enough twists in there to make it interesting, but fundamentally we understand why characters are doing things. We have clear motivation, and we're moving from plot point to plot point in a way that makes sense. Like this isn't complicated. You don't have to be a fucking genius to understand this.
There's this thing in films.
Ross, then Dave.
Yeah, can I just say? Normally, we're all messaging each other on WhatsApp, right? When we're watching a movie. Now, normally I don't engage that because I find the messaging distracting. In this case, the messaging was a fucking crutch for me to get through this movie. I'm not saying that to be funny. I genuinely
just follow
mean
along.
That. I mean, there was one point where I looked up to my ceiling and I was like, "What is happening? What am I doing? Is this worth it?"
Is happening.
What is time?
It's fuck me. No action has happened in this movie for like an hour at this point. And also, a key thing with like having a mystery in your movie, and not even all James Bond movies do this, but like you kind of need to solve the mystery, or just get there along with the movie. Like a really, really good mystery movie has you like one or two steps ahead of the main character. Like so, he walks into a room and he's going to find a clue, but you've kind of already figured it out, and that's like the sign of a good like unfolding of a plot. And obviously, it's totally absent here because you're scratching your head, going, "And why is he doing any of this? What is the objective here?"
Yeah, and it's a complicated nature.
Saying, "James Bond, you are doing X, Y, and Z."
It's the complicated nature of getting there as well, because we've got Tracy, we've got Diana Rigg that's one thread. We've got the dad of Diana Rigg, that's one thread. Although that just stops, so that's okay. Well, but we're never really told that. Is he going to come back? Like, yes, he does. But we're not given any, we're not given enough to say, okay, I'm gonna close that off in my mind for now. We're kind of just left there thinking, fuck's this guy gonna, And then we've got Bond resigning. So that's a thread. You're like, well, does he not want to do this anymore? Like, is this a thing of? Is that gonna? No, that doesn't really go anywhere either. Then we go to this Hillary guy. This fucking Hillary Duff comes in, and that's like, okay, so we've got another thing going on now, and that's actually going to run through the whole. Now he pretends in agreement to be. Hilary Duff says, I know his name's not Hilary Duff. That yes, you can be me. I will pretend. I'll just disappear and hang out and watch Netflix while you go off and hang around Blofeld. Like there doesn't seem to be any. That's weird in itself. So then he's pretending to be someone else. Hold on, Dave. Let me just get to the point. I think where we are in the movie. James Bond is now pretending to be somebody else so that he can go and talk to Blofeld about like heraldry, so he can get a coat of arms. That's pretty much where we're at. And then Blofeld introduces another thread, which is allergies or something.
Well, so Blofeld's got, and we kind of get told this at the solicitor's office, there is an allergy clinic in the Swiss Alps. That's where they think Blofeld is. That's where they think his big, Bond lair is, which it is.
That's middle.
For some reason, somehow, he gets hold of the idea that Blofeld is trying to have this heraldry done, and he's like, right. But again, there's no scene explaining that. We just kind of have the laborious scene where he meets the heraldry guy. But like, he's going to impersonate this heraldry guy. He's going to go to the plague clinic and have an orgy. Uncover Blofeld and take down Spectre. But like, he has to pretend to be this guy, which is fine, I suppose. But like, it's a long way round. It's a long way round to get us there.
You both have said it like in so many words, but what really, honestly, the square I can't circle is. I mean, Dave, you said it with the mystery. You know what I mean? You're 2 steps ahead. I'm finding myself trying to go, why? Why are you doing this? What?
Yes.
Why? Okay, you're speaking to him, right? You're undercover. Why? What do they want from you?
Yeah.
It's.
And let's not forget, I'm
getting worked up talking about this.
Get worked up, Ross. This is the energy we need. He's been told not to do this as well. Yeah. So he's been specifically told this is not your mission. This is not your mission. You've got 2 weeks off, in fact. And so, like, there's and think about how when we sometimes get a bit wound up with a movie, let's think about how we fix it. And number one, fucking allergies. Get that out of the movie. Get that out. What the fuck does that mean? That means nothing. Number two, just have James Bond go as James Bond. Like, that would be more interesting if Blofeld welcomed him and said, Mr. Bond, I'm a legitimate businessman with my massive fucking base. I'm just him. I'm enjoying the skiing. So if you want to come here, and I hear that you're on leave as well, so it's a bit of a, maybe a little bit obsessed with what's going on here. Please,
join me for a drink. Yeah.
Please come, Mr. Bond, and then we can have exactly the same thing where he's sneaking around, like having fucking relations with these.
He's not sneaking around.
Very ethnographic women.
Though.
Fuck's sake!
He's just
like
sneaking around having sex with this woman from Lancashire.
She's from Lancashire. Hello I'm from Lancashire. Like, it's absolutely wild. So it's about simplicity, and that is a thing. That's where we get lost. Now, as you say, Dave, we have not had an action scene in years. Like, I have fucking aged.
My recording has stopped.
Okay, that's good. We'll start it again. Start it again.
No. I don't know when it stopped, but the time it stopped at was 51:34.
That's about 2 minutes ago. So just start it again.
No. But we were recording for about 4 or 5 minutes. Before
my recording says 58 minutes, Sam.
Yeah.
That's okay, because the live one is 53:36. So it's a couple of minutes. Start it again. We do have the live stream, luckily.
Okay.
We can save it.
We're still going. I don't know why that happened. Sorry. Go on.
It's all right. Carry on.
Gilda's dead there. So, like, the whole movement into this kind of, like, sexy 70s orgy Swiss Alps revolving restaurant like thing.
No. Ski-mobile keys.
I just couldn't have a picture. Like those 80s Aspen movies, like where it's like, oh, you wanna save the world, bomb? Well, you're gonna have to ski me for it, bro.
Better movie. But it's been 14 years since we've seen an action scene in this movie.
And it's a James Bond movie.
And James Bond is doing nothing. He goes up to the Alps. He has a nice dinner. We have that salacious, like, drawing on his thigh scene with the lipstick. And he's like, oh, yes, it's this kind of party, is it? And so all the blood is in his dick, so he's no longer thinking about taking down. He's like,
I mean, they literally
my
say
one
that. They
weakness, I'm a
literally say
poon-hound.
he's. Oh yes, I'm sorry, I'm a bit stiff, or something. Like they are just. I mean, I know that's. Like, it's 1969. Like it's 1969. They're all up for it.
Balls, and all of these women are like, oh, balls.
Balls. What the fuck? It's so weird. But again, we're adding threads to our fucking tapestry of confusion.
Where's this going?
Yeah.
You know,
it's been an hour and 45 minutes, and we're only just learning the Bond villain's evil plot, which is, drum roll please, which is that I'm going to invent a mobile phone telephone network. I am going to chart fucking 15 different time zones so that I can call and activate all of these hypnotized women so they can release a plague toxin, which is in a vial in their handbag. No relation. What you could be literally anybody could have these. Like, I'm going to call you at this time. You're hypnotized. I've put radio masts outside of all of your houses. I'm going to call you on this mirror. You're going to then take this vial out and do something with it. Like,
psst, psst, spray it. Where?
Couldn't this just be outsourced to Royal Mail? Couldn't this just be like airmail?
Well,
like, fucking, I'll put all 12 of these parcels in the post, and I will achieve the same
anthrax.
Thing.
The anthrax letters, 2001. Like they've done this. This is, you know, I mean, like maybe they were inspired by this and thought that's a lot of work. I'm just going to do it.
Complicated.
Yeah,
and they don't resolve it either.
Yeah.
They're called the angels of death. These sexy women, by the way.
Now we should restrain ourselves a little bit in that the complicated plot to take over the world is kind of the thing that James Bond movies are about. You know, we have like the one before this was a spaceship, wasn't it? I think the missile that they were going to launch, and then there's Thunderball ball has like atomic nukes. It's got nukes in it, isn't it?
It's a lot of missiles. There's a lot of missiles in James Bond. It's always a missile.
Yeah, because it's 1969 and we're absolutely terrified of the Soviet
Union.
Union.
That's fine, Sam. I'm totally on board with the Bond villain take over the world, destroy the world thing.
Yes,
I really am. I just think that this is so poorly thought out and like executed in that there's no hint of this kind of like, oh, I know he's up to something. No, he just wants to catch this guy. Like if there was there's some plot to do this, to destabilize governments, to do this, to take power, to do... No, he's just got a plague and he's going to release it. And like, as we know from the fucking tedium of the last 2 years, actually releasing a plague would mostly just be tedious. You know?
Yeah. Yep. And he's doing this. He doesn't really want to. Like, he's not doing it because for a laugh. He's doing it as a...
This is what I don't get.
As a threat, he's doing it like he wants something in return. It's not exactly clear.
It's always been a bit weird in the Bond universe of like they don't really want. It's not money they're after because like they're building these like amazingly elaborate like fucking mountain bases and
he lives in the Alps.
Bases and
he lives
on the moon
neutral
bases and all sorts of stuff. Like they've obviously got loads of money and therefore loads of power, and so it's always a problem of like, what do they actually want? Do they want to take over governments? Because I feel like they could do that, but they don't.
And that's where the personal thing
did it with fucking half the resources.
That's where the personal thing would have been much more effective if James Bond and Blofeld, who I'm not sure if they've met. I can't remember if they've actually met in person.
No.
Up to this point, no. It would be like the reveal of, and I think the performance from what's his face, Telly. I think that's great. Like he is playing it. He's playing it really well. He's menacing. He's funny, and he's an engaging performance from him.
Unfortunately, he's playing off Lazenby.
The plank.
Well, I mean, I'll give him benefit of the doubt because, I mean, when you're fucking acting next to a plank of wood, it's hard to feed off that energy. But I didn't get that he was overly impressive, Sam. Like, you know, to me, it was
in the context of the movie, Ross. In the context of this, I'm looking for scraps here. After 2 hours, I'm like, come on, give me something. But all this is going on now, and then we have the other. And now we've got more threads. We've got more threads to add because we've got all of these women who are in there who are just unbelievably stereotypical. Like, oh my god,
sexy Cluedo. Like,
did you see? Did you see the scene where they're eating?
Here we go. Yeah.
And
yes. Unfortunately, I did stop.
There's a black woman who literally eats a banana. And I'm just let's just silence the podcast for a moment just to deal
it's
with the
bad.
fucking
and it's like,
trauma.
They're going for a very intentional like.
There's a woman in a sari type of thing who has like
bread.
Curry, and there's a woman who's eating noodles, and you're just like fucking. And I think the idea is to show that we're going to send these women off to all the different.
They're from all over the globe, yeah.
And so we're going to have complete coverage with our very, very complicated and small-scale plan to release this toxin.
In the movie, I agree. I think it's just a production racism thing. But, like, the film says it's because it's an allergy clinic and all of these people have come from their native lands because they're allergic to, like, a staple food.
Who is this for?
Bananas, if you're from Africa, apparently.
Who is this for?
Somehow that's okay. I don't know.
Who is it for, though, in the movie, like in the universe? Who is this for? I mean, is it for the women? I guess, because they have to have like a reason to be there, but that means they need to like trick them into being allergic to chicken or whatever. And is it for the staff? Is it to like keep the henchmen from figuring out like what's going on, because then they could leak it to the press? There's no fucking reason for this other than knowing that James Bond is going to come here and you need to pad the movie by 20 minutes. Like
it's the logistics that concern me, Sam, because the first one Bond bangs, she's from Morecambe Bay, like in Lancashire, and then you have all these other Lancashire, and then you have these other women like from all over the globe. So who is frequenting both fucking Tokyo as well as Morecambe? On the fucking
big seaside town in the 60s, to be fair, like a lot of industry and fishing going through Morecambe cats.
The idea is
hang on, let's juxtapose those two. So there you're in Paris, your call, Mr. Bond, 5 million francs, and then you're up in Morecambe Bay with fish and chips. What is this?
Absolutely. Never mind the fact that she's just completely. It would have been much more fun if she did a proper northern accent, like a real.
Not because the actress isn't from the north of England; she's from
Surrey.
She's
not.
You all sound the same to me. It's I'm sorry.
It's a questionable thing because someone obviously thought like she has to be from Lancashire. Why just not have her just be from London? Like, great, fine, because she sounds like.
Hello, Mr. Bond. Do you want a balm?
Would you like a cup of tea?
Oh my! Let's settle this now and go down to mine, right?
It's just made some tea cakes, Mr. Bond.
Yeah, it's just fucking like that's what it should be. That's what it should be. Oh god! I mean, trying to keep this fucking movie in your head and all the things that are going on. Now, the heraldry is like there's so much that they talk about, whereas something about earlobes, what the fuck?
Oh, detached earlobes, yeah.
Did he cut off his earlobes so he could pretend to be part of this lineage?
Apparently, yeah.
And then they're like having fucking, he's saying about Augsburg and they need to go to the archive for some reason, and even the very point of the real Hillary being there seems a fucking stretch. Like he's gonna talk to this guy about how he's part of this family and there's lots of work that's around that, and he needs to go to.
He's there to infiltrate, and so in theory, if the movie wasn't made by a bunch of fucking sex crazed old men, the movie should be James Bond slipping out of his room and investigating, but seemingly it's like scenes missing, and what he is doing is slipping out of his room to slip into these women's rooms. He's like, I could take down Blofeld, who I know is an evil genius and is probably planning to destroy the world again, much like he did last year and the year before that, etc., etc.
Yeah,
I'm always saving the world.
Somehow.
Rather than doing that, I'm on holiday. I'm on annual leave from MI5 or 6 or whatever. I'm going to fuck some of these patients at this plague hospital. This allergy hospital. And so we don't have any infiltration. There's no him going through someone's office or him piecing together the plague thing or him figuring it out so that we can have the Blofeld explaining it to him, seeing later. And it'd be like, you've discovered my, which is shit. But you expect it.
It's structural shit.
Instead of having that, we have, he goes off and he has sex with this woman. Oh, and he comes back to his room and there's another woman there, and he's like, if I must for Queen and Country, and you're like, what are you doing? Like, and then we go straight from there to James Bond being so passive again that he just gets captured, and it's like, what are you even achieved by being here, Bond?
Finally, Sam. Finally, you have reached where I have been for the last 5 minutes.
I tried.
Oh my God, who cares?
I tried. No, let's just wrap it up here. No. We will continue because
there's like half an hour of the movie left.
There's much more than that, Dave. There's much more than half an hour of the movie left. Because we still let's not forget, we still haven't had an action scene since the very start of the movie. We are so close.
Has it been that long since something happened?
We're so close. We've still got lots of like messing around, and we have skipped over the charming introduction of Bunt, Irma Bunt, the who in just, you know, a classic 60s misogyny is ugly and thus evil, and that is all the notes. That's all the notes on that character. Stern German woman who's ugly and thus evil, which is how she was described, and that's how they play it. And like, she's basically just, you know, her like ultimate henchman, kind of doing like an odd job.
Did we all enjoy the scene where they put her in one of the women's beds so that not just Bond comes in and they hit him over the head? No. I'm going to get under the covers in the lingerie. I'm going to do that, right? You're going to hide behind the sofa and behind the door.
Miss, you don't need to do that. Silence!
Shut up!
I shall
I'm
get
going to
into
get
bed.
under the covers, right? I'm playing a part, sir. I'm going to get under the covers in the lingerie and go, "Ooh, Mr. Bond, ooh," right? And he's going to come in, and then, oh my God, the look on his face is going to be amazing.
No, maybe her plan was a little bit more like, well, and you know, I'll keep going a little bit longer just to see. I'll maybe
once we've had sex to completion, you guys come in and grab him.
Aha! You have been foiled, Mr. Bond. This is the headcanon you have to develop to get yourself.
Why else is she in the bed?
I don't know. It's absolutely insane.
You control the facility. You know where his room is. You didn't even need to wait for him to come in to get him.
We've got this. So let's add another thread to the tapestry. We've got, who the fuck is this British guy who's also trying to get into the place that's following him from the start?
That was the dude who put the photocopier into the crane for him. He was like a contact.
So is he part of MI5? Is he another spy?
Oh, who gives a shit, Sam?
But they don't explain it.
He has about 4 lines of dialogue in this movie.
And he's like, what? Is this not? It's not a free country. I can't climb to the top of a massive fucking peak.
Can't I climb into your private property and like
fuck around for a bit? I mean,
fuck you! I'll go where I want. This is actually private property. Hey, you can't tell me where to go. No, I can't. That's
how it works. That's
outrageous.
And then they hang him from the, and I'm like, am I supposed to feel sad about that? Like, is he?
Again, hang on.
Is he someone we knew?
Again, wait, Sam, wait. Before they march him off and they have this other, hey, you piece of shit! I'll go where I want. Before that, like, they catch him climbing up and they open fire on him. So now, think about that. What transpired between him on the edge of a cliff, them firing at him, to then now they're marching him at, like, what? Like, were they warning shots? What?
They are making work for themselves, honestly. And Bond henchmen always do this. Like, just shoot this guy. Oh no, he's dead. Like, you're not gonna be brought up on a fucking disciplinary for shooting an intruder.
I would love to be like a logistics manager for like Henchmen Incorporated. Okay, we have onboarding today, guys. Seriously, health and safety. Do not skip this. All right, it's mandatory. You will not be put to work if you don't go to this. Okay, next we have captured a agent. Steve, you're going to kill him. No, you're not going to leave him in the room, Steve. We've been over this.
But sir,
John, you go
the,
with Steve. Make sure he kills him in the room with the witness.
but sir, Blofeld has instructed us to use a very slow laser to just.
Listen,
should we do that? Yes, absolutely.
I discussed this with Blofeld, right? I have the email thread, okay? You don't believe me? Take it up with him, right? I'm telling you, go to the room, put 2 in that fucking guy's head, call it a day, all right?
I'm listen.
Just
None of us are
that
paid
way.
enough.
We lost 74 henchmen last year to this guy. He killed 74 people. Our company is going under.
motivational posters
Or death
around
payouts
that
to
wall.
widows.
Like 87% of all like henchman deaths is because you didn't kill a dude.
Yeah,
This is
everyone gets grenades. If you see anyone who's not one of us, throw a grenade. Throw a grenade. Even if you think,
shot is a shot
is that
wasted.
Steve? Shall I? Yeah, throw a grenade anyway, just in case. You're all expendable. You're literally all expendable.
Steve, we buy them by the crate, man. Just
Yeah.
fucking throw a grenade.
Throw a grenade. Now, and then Tracy's about again. You know, she
Remember
Dana
her?
Rigg. She's back, so we've got
She was
her
in the
doing
previous
her
movie. Oh,
thing.
sorry, not the previous movie. She was in the first hour and a half of this movie.
Oh, we're getting to a point here, lads. Where
I know. Right, we haven't got long. We haven't got long. Maybe 40 to
Another
80
4
minutes left of this podcast.
25
the
to life.
delirium is set in now, so the
The
energy's
delirium's
back.
good. But what we do have is an action scene. We get them going down the Alps in on the skis, and we get to see some great cool stuff with people being shot in front of a screen, and then that's kind of what we get is just not very good.
To be fair, we do see some really cool skiing. There's some great skiing stunt work in this film. It's just spoiled quite a lot by every time they have to cut to these guys in a fucking soundstage.
I know. They obviously couldn't get those shots or whatever. Yeah.
Well, presumably because these guys aren't fucking Olympic level skiers and they didn't have the camera technology to capture it if they were.
Mm-hmm.
So we cut from the backs of these really fantastic skiers doing some really cool stuff to fucking George Lazenby's on a treadmill going.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a podcast, but I'm doing the ski arm thing.
Ski arms, left and right, left and right. Left
oh
and right.
yeah, but it's just so clearly, and it just.
There's someone playing music. Are you trying to get us out of this podcast, Ross?
No, I'm not. I'm just. It was just when you said, and then we finally get the action scene, and then I remembered the action scene you were talking about, and it was the most disappointing fucking action scene. Do you remember the bit? Do you remember the bit where James Bond, where you get the music going dun 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 dun, and proper this time, and then and Dave, you messaged at the time, he's sliding on the ice, shooting.
It's mental.
And then, but again, now you have to think: how did he get into that position? Did he take a run up? There's nowhere to take a run up. It's all a platform of ice.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, Sam. I've ruined it for you. It
No,
was terrible.
you haven't. Now we get down. The chase scene is happening. They fall asleep in a barn, and
Don't forget, Sam. We get another sex scene.
we get another sex scene, and we get a proposal for marriage as well, which seems very hasty.
I'll
I mean,
get rid of
I guess Bond is thinking I've got the million if I do this, and that's a thing.
He's
And-
thinking, payday, Jamie boy, payday.
Yeah. And he's the only one who can remember what happened an hour earlier in this movie. So he's like, oh yeah, gold. I'm going to marry this woman, so that's fine. Then we get another chase
It's a
scene.
testament to 1969 making a movie that happens in real time over the course of a week.
Yes, exactly. We all get to watch it. And then we get another chase scene, which is pretty much the same as skiing down a mountain, except he's we get some weird...
More sped up shot again.
They throw some mannequins off a cliff, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Then we get legitimately good avalanche explosion, which I think is great. And they actually got the Swiss Army to blow up avalanches, which is what they do to clear the snow.
Interesting.
Yes, yeah, the Swiss Army.
Good
Knives.
avalanches as well.
It's so that all happens, and that's it's cool, and then just so they get down there, and they're back in London, and M's like, actually, Bond, yeah, you're right, Blofeld is a dick. We're gonna have to do something because he's gonna destroy agriculture or whatever.
Is that what happens?
Can I interject here for 1 second?
Yep.
Because you have the avalanche, and Blofeld is like, grab the girl, take her away. And then, like you said, Sam, we're back in England, and Bond is looking out a window, but they've like projected like a repeat of that scene of them like picking up the girl. It happened 4 seconds ago, but the audience needs to be reminded of why Bond is sad.
Because she gets captured. You're right. I forgot to mention that because it's so confusing. And Dave, we do go back to London, and
But
M's response once again. Hold on. M's response once again is nope. We're not. No, you are not authorized to go. We are actually going to pay him off. We're going to pay him off. This guy has got fucking these angels of death littered across the globe and could release one of them at any point. But no, we're going to pay him his whatever the hell he wants. I don't even know. And
at what point do we assume that M is on Blofeld's like?
He must be. He must be. And there is no rescue mission either. You're not allowed to go and rescue Tracy, who's been captured. And so, call back. We get Tracy's dad comes in and this is where we get the weird fucking helicopters.
Do you guys remember who Tracy's dad is?
He's a
Apart
mafia
from the guy
boss,
who's
isn't
best. Yeah, but he is in direct competition with Blofeld. That's why Bond goes to him.
Yep.
Like he is the second largest crime syndicate after the bad guys. So surely, in James Bond's mind, he's like, right, well, in 3 years, I'm going to be after this guy. Surely, if I get Blofeld,
what, his father-in-law? No way. No way is he gonna.
Surely, if he gets Blofeld, who's gonna become the big crime syndicate trying to take over the world? Surely it's going to be the second biggest crime syndicate. Surely.
Yeah. And so when we get this action scene, and Ross, you mentioned the classic James Bond music, which is just on loop for this entire fucking scene. Completely.
I got ahead of myself there. I thought this was the action scene.
No, it's not. We're not even. Yeah. It's completely aimless. You go back to GoldenEye, the bit with the tank, and it's like as the tank flies through the wall, fucking amazing stunt. Like it's a real wall. And what do we get? Literally the moment it happens, we get the whole Bond theme, and it's brilliant. Like it's such an exciting piece of music, and it works so well. And that's just like on loop, just littered through. No real point of it. They don't emphasize the none of that. They're not interested in that at all. And so we just get this
carry, and that song's been doing this movie.
Yes, we get this serviceable scene.
This whole scene is a bit of a mess, isn't it?
It's a mess. It's like, a total mess of like what's going on.
We're raiding the fucking Pizza Hut on top of the Alps, and like we're going through, we're throwing grenades, we're blowing stuff up. Oh, we've shot the big computers, so the world is saved? ?
These women are still out there. Are they not?
Yeah. I know. But Sam, he's destroyed the nascent mobile network that Blofeld was going to use to contact.
One of them drops.
One of them drops a vial. Their contact information.
One of them drops a fucking vial, or their luggage gets smashed in the plane.
I was about to say that. Yeah,
we're all fucked.
Drops a handbag.
Don't worry about it, Sam. Sam, don't worry about it. Yeah. And then he blows all that up, and then we get another fucking ski chase scene, and it's like. Did we have these guys an extra week or what?
It's not even a ski chase scene. It's a bobsled chase scene.
No, it's skiing first, isn't it?
I know, but we get fucking
Yes, you're right. It's ski chase into bobsled chase.
Into bobsled. We get a fucking bobsled. And I mean, honestly, to God. Now, it's cool. Bobsleigh's pretty cool. Like, I'm not ever going to really watch the Olympics, but if I saw a 4-second GIF on Reddit, I might go... cool, and move on. I appreciate the
charming movie about Jamaica starring John Candy.
Maybe. Let's do that film. I see the bobsledding as more fun to do than watch, and more fun to watch than watching a fucking film.
In a film. That's not even. And so that happened.
It's fun enough, but it's like it stretches the bounds of possibility of like. You know how skiing is really difficult, and I can kind of get behind James Bond and Blofeld being. Upper class and therefore good at skiing, fine. But like bobsledding is also difficult, and like, but not in the same way that skiing is. Like you and I could get in a bobsled and we'd presumably be killed immediately.
Doesn't it take like multiple people to pilot bobsled because you have to lean.
Well, I think once you're moving, Ross, the bobsled kind of does a lot of its own thing. Like once the momentum of you going down this fucking icy fucking
is it
water
not
slide,
like the Flintstones where you stick your feet out the bottom and you scurry along the ice?
you're just going, but they're fine. They're like, oh, it's fine. We can have a fight and shoot each other while we're bobsledding down this course. And you're like, what? Okay.
Absolutely great. And then Blofeld is like killed, or is he just captured?
So
like he gets wrapped up around a tree, which is
I've been waiting this whole episode to talk about one of the things that really gripes me about Lazenby and James Bond in this movie, and that is these quips he does, and they're so forced. Like this one that killed Blofeld, he's like, "Oh, he's branched off." The fuck are you saying?
I know.
Oh, and like earlier in that scene, that action scene we were talking about, and he shoots a guy in the gut. Oh, he gets nervous around guns.
Unbelievable. And it's what it is. It's like that scene in American Dad where Roger's like,
Yes.
"Who am I talking to?" Like he becomes self-aware that he's in a movie, and there is no self-awareness.
It comes back to like other James Bond movies working better. Sean Connery is kind of like this bluff, funny guy, and so him saying something like that, it comes across as like, do you know what I mean? He's so egotistical that he finds it funny. Lazenby's just saying it because it's a line in the movie, and he hasn't got the fucking skill to like sell it off. Roger Moore's doing it like in his movies, but it's like it's because it's that campy, cartoony thing. But Lazenby says it, and it's like
he's reading a script.
You can imagine. And that's what struck me throughout most of this movie, really. It's like imagining how different a movie it would have been if it had been Connery, who's a much better actor and I think like just a much better force on screen than Lazenby is. And like as much as we talked about, obviously the problematic nature of James Bond, you kind of need James Bond to be quite a forceful presence on the screen. Like that's what the character is. And when you've got Lazenby fucking lying in the snow doing one-liners at this dead guy, and you're like,
Except he's not dead.
It's even happening.
Except he's not dead.
He hasn't even checked.
What kind of
rule number 2?
Because he comes back
high
in.
school.
Confirm the kill.
Again.
You're like, right, James,
Throw a
we're going
grenade.
to try this again. I stamp on your foot, and then you shoot the bad guy twice in the head to make sure he's actually dead.
One in the head, 2 in the chest. Like that's how we do it. Now, Blofeld does come back in the next movie, and one of
this movie.
This is
He comes back. He's the one who shoots the wife.
Yeah, but he comes back in he's back in the next movie though. Like he's still going, and because of the whole controversy with Lazenby leaving, is that there was supposed to be a continuation of what happens because Tracy gets killed at the end. Cool stinger. Weird ending for like this supposedly high octane action movie. But anyway. And there was supposed to be a continuation of that plot. That gets completely dropped. They rewrite it because they don't want him there. And Lazenby didn't want to be there. So they're like, well, we don't want to do this. And we get this. There was a suggestion that like Goldfinger was going to be back. And he's going to...
Goldfinger!
Yeah. And then Goldfinger was...
Gold. Why did we do that movie?
I don't know.
Yeah, Dave. Why didn't we do that movie?
Hold on, let me just set this out because it's a great fact. Goldfinger is back, and the idea was that Blofeld was going to be like Goldfinger's twin brother, and so it would be a whole thing, and then there would be like this doubled because in Diamonds Are Forever we get like 2 Blofelds, and it's part of the thing. Now the reason that was dropped, this is a bit of an aside, but I just think it's amazing. Just reading from Wikipedia, the plot was later changed after Broccoli had a dream. This is the creator Al Broccoli, where his close friend Howard Hughes, yes, the Howard Hughes, was replaced by an imposter. Hence the character of Willard White was created. And they completely rewrote the script. So we've got this like fucking Madman Dreams of a Howard Hughes robot that's going on. And so when we come back to this movie, On Her Majesty's Secret Service, the end of the film is the stinger, and you think, wow. And imagine leaving the cinema at that point. You think, well, that wasn't a great movie, but like it's a Bond movie and they're making more, and I wonder how they're going to deal with this. And the answer was, Howard Hughes I had a dream about Howard Hughes, so fucking, I don't know, like, there's 2 of them or something. Nothing, absolutely nothing. We're not going to reference that anymore. We're going to move on, and we don't give a shit. Like, Sean Connery's back. Retcon, the whole movie is nothing.
It could have been if the movie had been...
They nailed it, Sam, because I don't give a shit.
No.
I don't give a shit about this movie.
Which is fair. And it's so inconsequential, and like having James Bond, fall in love and get married and things is fine. And I think a lot of people say that it's the movie where James Bond left MI6 and got married and fell in love and all of that. And it's like, part of me is like, did he though? Like, I mean, yes, that's what the script is telling me, and that's what like Diana Rigg is doing. But I don't buy Lazenby doing any of these things. Like, he doesn't sell a single. The scene at the end where she gets shot, I think, like, would in the hands of even Sean Connery, who, like, as much as he's a better actor than Lazenby, I don't think he's like a big Shakespearean great. But even Sean Connery, this would have been a really powerful scene of like, emotion, and it's just flat. Except
they get this fucking weird looking like cop guy to roll up and knock on the window. What the fuck is that? Like, you see the guy?
We've got all the time in the world. You see that performance there was better than Lazenby's in the film. So clip that. Use a time machine.
Just from a point of like we don't need to have another thing going on in this movie. Have her die, and then just caress her, and that's the end of the film. And then nice helicopter shot of them on the thing, pull away.
Yeah, love a helicopter
scene.
shot.
Like, why have we got this guy who looks... It's just the whole thing. I thought, like, just what is going on here? It's another thread we're added to the tapestry of absolute madness that is this movie. And they are not... we don't see the guy again. Is he still standing there while Bond's having a mental breakdown? She's tired, he says. She's very sleepy. And I'm like, what fucking...
Am I the only one who's thinking...
Excuse me, sir. Please get out of the car.
Yeah,
Are you
right?
okay, ma'am?
Right,
Are you okay, man?
Pulls out the gun, get the fuck out right now. Oh my god, you motherfucker. What have you done to her?
What have you done
to her?
Oh, you can see the hole in the windscreen. He sees the bullet holes all over the car. And he's like, so, excuse me, sir.
But these are questions we shouldn't have to ask. We should not have to ask.
Why is he in the film?
Why is he in the film? Why choose to do that? And that is all the way through the movie.
Scene should be, you see the flashing lights sort of like blurred in the background, and then all of a sudden you see James Bond's torso slammed on the trunk of his car. James Bond, you're under arrest for murder. Handcuffs on. Bond is being led to a police car as the helicopter shot pulls away.
You know what? It may as well be. It may as well be that, because none of it matters, and that's the end of this movie. And I think it's it's one thing. Like, it's one thing to make a bad film, and we have done lots of bad films in our
proudly
on this podcast. But it's like it's when you can't connect with the decision making. That's what I find so frustrating, because I get when you go, well, we don't have a lot of money and we're not that talented, and like, that's fine. But when you've got the whole apparatus of like the Bond universe surrounding you, and you've got actually some of the direction in this, I think it's interesting. Like, some of the framing of shots is interesting. Some of the sets, like having it in the Alps, is like great. And in fact, this is Christopher Nolan's favourite Bond movie for some reason. But you can think of Inception, think of all the snow stuff in Inception. It's like really mirrored, because it actually looks pretty great throughout the film. So there's lots of like high quality stuff going on. And yet what we're left with is like just loads of weirdness. Just loads of like, why did you choose to do that? Why is that guy in the move at the end? Like, why didn't you just make it simpler for yourself?
Really good catch-all of why this movie is bad. Because they couldn't have, like, the fight scenes are bad because Lazenby couldn't do the choreography. They're sped up because he couldn't do the scene fast enough. It's not the fucking guy with no lines who he's fighting, because that's obviously a stuntman.
Yeah.
Like, that's his job. He can do that. You don't have any scenes where like James Bond gets to be really emotional or like anything like that, because Lazenby doesn't have that range. So you end up with a movie that is gutted and edited around the fact that your leading man was fucking making cigarette ad commercials like fucking 6 months before this movie. And I'm sure Lazenby's a fine, nice bloke and everything, but this is not a good performance.
No.
This probably isn't the worst James Bond film, though. I'd be excited to. Excited
Can we
I'm trying to
please
think-
never cover that one?
I'm trying to think. Would I rather watch this or
Tomorrow Never
Quantum of
Dies?
Solace?
Quantum of Solace.
is quite bad.
Oh, Quantum of Solace is absolutely an awful movie.
I think that's
Awful
a
movie.
worse movie than this movie. I will say that outright.
I don't know, because in some ways, in some ways,
some of the
going back,
Brosnan ones were dog
yeah,
shit.
all of them. Die Another Day, trash. The Tomorrow Never Dies, trash. The
What's
other
the one where
that,
they're injecting scorpion venom into him in Korea?
fucking, I don't. There's one more that's trash as well, but in some ways, I kind of, going back to the beginning, what we said, I kind of respect this movie because it's trying to do something. It's trying, and actually, it's a pretty modern interpretation of what Bond is. We look back to the Daniel Craig ones. We're going for this type of thing where it's a bit more, it's less surface level. It's trying to be deeper. The problem is, you got to have the ingredients there. They aren't there. I mean, what is it? 4 fight scenes in this entire movie. 2 of those are like hand to hand. One on the ski, two ski chases.
Fight in the hotel room. You then have the cable car thing, the skiing, the other skiing, the helicopters, the blowing up, the more skiing, the bobsledding. But I mean, a lot of those are happen in 2 sequences. A lot of those happen in 2 sequences.
It's just not enough, is it? It's empty calories.
The complete absence of the gadgets as well, though. This is a Bond movie. You see them, like when he tries to hand in his notice, got the watch, pulls out the little, carbon fiber strap, whatever. Oh yeah, that's great. And then that's it. No, and that's one of the great things about Bond movies as well. You had that scene with Q, and they're all quipping back and forth. Aren't these, rambunctious little lads? Nothing of that.
Well, it was I think the experimental nature of this film, Ross, where they were trying to see whether they could move away from that and make it more serious. And it doesn't really work, and it falls a bit flat. No. And that's why you get the silly Roger Moore films where you have that in every film. And we can sell 1 million toys. And not
that's for another 60
really.
Years was the answer to that. That's what we get.
We have to add, basically, the missing ingredient was get someone who can act and then fucking tase their balls, apparently, was that ingredient.
Nope, it was a rope, Dave. It was a fucking piece of rope. Jesus.
I'm sorry, Sam.
I'm making me think about it.
I'm not up on my ball torture. Everyone refers to Sam's blog.
If you can find
the ways in which I can torture Daniel Craig's balls on film.
If you can find it, you can enjoy it. All right, I'm done. I'm done talking about this movie. I'm done talking about... And actually, let's just go back to recriminations. Fuck you, Dave, for making us watch this.
Oh,
there are so many better movies. So many
shit.
Better, worse Bond movies
the amount
that we
of
could have watched.
Expletives I've had to fucking use for this movie. And it's your fault, Dave. We're honestly...
My retort is that we are.
No, you don't get a retort, Dave. This is how bad it fucking is. This is how angry I am at you.
Democratic podcast. For this instance, Sam could have recommended a different Bond movie.
If this is what democracy is, I want to live under the dictatorship of
Ross,
Sam. Because this
haven't
garbage.
You haven't even recommended a movie, so get off your fucking high horse.
Oh, that is true, Ross.
Although, to be fair, we probably won out there, Sam.
Is that what you want, Dave? Is that what you want? Do you want me to recommend a movie? Is that what you want? Be careful what you fucking wish for.
Sam, Ross, they only made 1 Street Fighter movie. That's a very finite thing you can threaten us with.
No, to be fair, we do have the back catalogue of Arnold Schwarzenegger, which is the only movies that Ross has seen. So,
let's do the movie. Come on.
Well, I look forward to whatever hellscape we end up inhabiting next week. It can't be any worse than this, though, can it? Really? Can it?
That is a great way. No.
Could it?
Surely.
Find out next week.
Amazing.
There we go.
I'm pressing stop.
That's a long podcast.
You know what? But I think sometimes you need the collective therapy. I think to just kind of wash this movie away. Just. It's all gone. It's all gone. We never have to come back to it. We can just enjoy the fact that it's only the future ahead of us, and whatever Ross is going to make us watch.
I'm gonna meditate, and I'm gonna go through some shit. and I'm gonna pick something.
Excellent.
I'm gonna pick something so fucking bad.
Ross is gonna go slap a woman, have a cigarette.
Imaginary Movie Podcast does not condone anything like that.
Are we still live? No, we are.
We are.
Right. I think we'll end it there.